Police identifying man who stabbed two museum of modern art. Police have not yet apprehended the suspect.
Video shows the man jumping over the reception desk and attacking the workers. Deputy New York City Police Commissioner John Miller says the suspect is 60-year-old Gary Cabana, who tried to see a film at the museum but was denied entry because his museum membership was revoked the day before.
His membership had expired as a result of 2 incidents involving disorderly conduct here at the museum on 2 separate dates in recent days.
The 2 victims went to the hospital in stable condition, one stabbed in the back and neck, the other in the left collarbone. Roger Stern, Fox News.
The U.S. continuing to see gas prices rise. When is it going to stop?
Gas prices now stand at a record average of $4.43 a gallon, up 79 cents in just the last 2 weeks. Oil industry analyst Trilby Lumberg says this is unprecedented.
This was a record not only for the amount of the hike and the price, but for speed, because that amounts to nearly 6 cents per day for the past 14 days.
Russia is the second largest exporter of oil in the world, and Lumberg says the invasion of Ukraine upset an already tight crude oil market. She adds that, unfortunately, Americans will have to get used to the current pricing level. Kevin Uretsky, Fox News.
Get ready for March Madness. The brackets have been revealed for the 2022 NCAA men's basketball tournament. The top seeds in each region are Gonzaga, Arizona, Kansas, and last year's winner, Baylor. And congratulations, Chase Briscoe, for winning your first NASCAR Cup Series victory at the Ruoff Mortgage 500 at Phoenix Raceway.
Into turn 3 for the final time. Driving for his boyhood idol, Tony Stewart, Chase Briscoe becomes the 200th winner in the history of the NASCAR Cup Series.
Fox TV with the final call. Ross Chastain finishing second and Tyler Riddick ending up third. I'm Laura Cantor, and this is Fox News.
Half a day. This is Jade Uggan from Security Title, and in celebration of Tomorrow Month, here is a tip on dealing with your land. You might be thinking of giving part of your property to your child or another family member. Once you have subdivided the property and recorded the map, you will also need to record the deed transferring the title. Just drawing the map is not enough to make sure they actually own the land. Protehi y Tanonmu. When it comes to your family land, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Always here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years, we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. More services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
An easily overlooked part of covering our home is what's inside of it. Over time, we buy things we don't want to lose, but don't update our contents coverage. The smart thing to do is get the answers and level up our insurance to make sure we're totally protected.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. At least not as long as I got anything to say about it, and I'll be having something to say about it every day of the week except Saturday and Sunday from now until the end of the foreseeable future. Shall not be infringed. Well, today is Red Shirt Monday. Jose and I are just laughing and giggling like a couple of young folks because we know we got a whole week of Tall Tales ahead of us. We couldn't be happier. Friday's a long way. Friday's so far off, I can't even imagine what it's going to be like, Jose.
It's not the foreseeable future.
Oh, I ought to put my headset on, huh? Say it again, Jose.
I said it is not the foreseeable future.
It is not. Yeah, we just say no to Fridays. All right, so here it is. A Monday, it's Red Shirt Monday. And since it is Monday, right after the halftime show, we're going to have more entertainment. We're going to have the Hope Christobel Show. And if you've never seen the Hope Christobel Show before, you are in for a rare treat. If your neighbors, etc., have not seen the Hope Christobel Show, give them a heads up, because everyone should have a chance to really weigh in on what Hope Christobel is all about and where she's coming from. Okay, let's start out with Zemi Ikotny. We got more than the usual component of Zemi Ikotny today because I'm going to read a couple of guest writers into the record. Certainly for the Post, it's still on strike as far as writing editorials, unless Mr. Ho S. Yun, the owner of the Post, wants to pick up his pen and scribble a little bit, and we'll get to that later. Okay, so today's daily news. Island consumers have long dealt with the reality of expensive goods and services on Guam, why goods and services on Guam more than they would in the mainland U.S. But turmoil in the global energy market announced itself at the pumps last week as the cost of fuel spiked to $5.99 for a gallon. Now, there's a really interesting observation to be made right there, and that is going back to the title of George Tweed's book, No Man is an Island. And nowadays, in the 21st century, no island is an island. So what happens in some far-off place like Ukraine has an impact on what's going on right here in the island. If you don't believe me, go down to your nearest gas station and take a look at the pump. To $5.99 a gallon. Now, of course, if Guam were independent, the price would probably be down around $2.49 a gallon.
Obviously.
Yeah, because we'd be independent. We wouldn't be tied into all of this stuff. And we could set our own prices for gasoline. We wouldn't be the prisoners of the folks in the mainland. All right. Turmoil in the global energy market announced itself to pumps last week as the cost of fuel spiked to $5.99 for a gallon. From the pump to the grocery aisle, increasing transportation costs and gaps in the worldwide supply chain make it harder to keep shelves full or to buy the things we need. And there's a strong likelihood that things may get worse before they get better. While the rising cost of crude oil has led to frequent increases in the Levelized Energy Adjustment Clause, the conflict in Ukraine has accelerated the potential for LEAC increases beyond what the Power Authority predicted. Now, of course, we got to take into consideration that as the late great Yogi Berra said, prediction's really hard, especially when it's about the future. But what does that mean for ratepayers? Either we pay more for electricity or we lack the fuel necessary to generate that electricity in the first place. Like tourism, the oil sector is highly sensitive to world events. A crisis in Kiev can mean working families won't be able to keep the lights on here at home. How about that?
Say what?
A crisis in Kiev may be, well, I suppose.
There's a lot more dots that are missing. But.
Yeah, I suppose if you wanted to abbreviate for brevity's sake, you could say that, yeah.
It's only one column op-ed.
Yeah, exactly. We commend the Power Authority's alternative energy goals and its focus on renewable energy, but so much more must be done. Because the cost of fuel represents such a large portion of power bills, the LEAC was originally intended to level sudden and dramatic cost increases by spreading them out between periods of adjustment. This was a good idea, but exceptional events require extraordinary intervention. Ooh, I don't like the sound of that, Jose. Extraordinary events, exceptional events sometimes require extraordinary intervention. If there's a problem, who are you going to call? The government. To combat the rising cost of fuel associated with the previous increase in the LEAC, Governor Lulian Guerrero transferred $15 million in federal relief funds to GPA. While this did not stop the increase, it did make it more manageable for ratepayers, according to GPA. Now may be the right time for even more relief. Unlike pay adjustments for the public sector or cash supports for those struggling at or below the poverty line, we all have power bills or live with family who do. Not everybody has a power bill. That guy that used to hang around out in front of the building, he had it made when it came to power. He never, ever paid a power bill. Going forward, GPA should consider an expansion of its net metering. Oh, that'll help a lot, the expansion of its net metering program. So it's not enough that we pay for our own power. We got to pay for somebody else's too. Let me explain that. The net metering program. If you generate power at your house, if you've got solar panels on your roof and the right kind of a connection to the GPA wires, the service, when you generate more power than you're using in your house, you're actually putting power back in the line. And this can be metered. And in order to give people the incentive to get into solar power, there was a net metering program, and the Power Authority would pay you the same rate for the power that you generated as the power that it sold. So if it was selling electricity for 20 cents a kilowatt, and you put 10 kilowatts a day into your line, then you got 10 times 20 cents, which is how much, Jose?
100. 10 times 20 cents?
Yeah.
$1.
What? $1?
That's why I'm behind the board.
$2.
$2.
Yeah, that'd be $2, right? And 7 times $2 would be $14. So you would get a $14 credit on your power bill for the power that you actually bought from GPA. A sweet deal. But after the initial phase, after a lot of people signed up for the net metering program, GPA said, we can't afford to do this. We're in competition with ourselves. And we've got the fuzzy end of the lollipop here because the folks out there in net metering aren't paying for any of the other costs. They're not paying for the transmission lines, all of the things necessary for them to sell their power back to GPA. So instead of buying it back at the same rate that we sell it to them for, we're going to buy it back at the avoided cost amount. Avoided cost meaning we'll give them the same amount of money that it costs us to generate that power, which seems to me to be a common sense situation. No business is going to last very long if it goes into competition with itself by selling the things that it buys at the same price as the things it sells. It's the old joke about, what? You really want to know how to make money in real estate? Buy high, sell low, and make it up in volume. No! Yeah, so, and here's the Daily News coming out and saying, now might be the right time for more relief. The GPA should consider an expansion of its net metering program, the method through which residential and commercial consumers of electricity produce their own solar or voltaic power to export excess production back to the island's grid. That's not net metering. Net metering means keep doing that and we'll buy it from you at the same price that we're selling it to you for, which makes the problem only worse. Numerous island households benefit from net metering right now, many with power bills that are a small fraction of the traditional cost. However it is achieved, that should be our goal for as many Guam residents as possible. Now, how could that work? Well, let's take it to the, let's play a little reductio ad absurdum. Let's take it to the logical extreme. Let's say that 90% of the households on Guam, 90% of the customers, the ratepayers, had their own power generation, net metering. What does that do to the power authority?
It renders them almost useless.
Well, except for the fact that you can't do net metering unless you've got those transmission lines that require a lot of
maintenance,
heavy-duty maintenance. Yeah, and somebody you got to have the guys back there with the eye shade sitting on the high-back stool with sleeve garters keeping track of all of the books here, the so-called accountants. So if everybody were net metering, there wouldn't be any buyers. And of course, net metering, the folks who are net metering sell it back in the daytime and then they buy some more at night. Because believe it or not, now this is a highly scientific matter that others may say that I'm not really qualified to comment on. I'm not an electrical engineer. I've never played the role of an electrical engineer in a movie or on a TV series. But I'll tell you this, at night, you can't generate solar power. Because in order to generate solar power, you've got to have the sun. Shocking but true. That's why.
Shut your mouth, Bob.
That's why I have this reputation. Bob always tells it like it is. He doesn't care whose feelings it hurts. Sorry, son.
What about the moon? It's bright.
Well, that's true, but it doesn't generate that much power, Jose. Good try. Good try. So, if an unstable world has taught us anything, it's that reliability is an economic imperative. If we want to kickstart our economy, now what kind of an engine do you kickstart, Jose? Have you ever kickstarted an engine?
The only one is a moped.
Kickstart them, yeah, and there are some. Yeah, that's right. Motorcycles, where in order to make an internal combustion engine run, there are spark plugs. There is an electric current that causes the spark plug to spark at the right time. There's a fuel pump and another system that pumps vaporized gasoline into a cylinder where the spark ignites it. But you can't just get into your car and step on the gas and go. That engine has to be turning in order for it to work. How do you make it turn?
With a source of combustion, a continuous combustion with fuel.
Well, I think the real answer here is that you have, in your automobile, you have a motor. And guess what runs the motor? Mm-hmm. Electricity, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you're going to kickstart the economy, your economy is an internal combustion engine, which of course it really is, and it will be for a long time. All right, if we want to kickstart our economy, foster foreign investment, or regain our competitive stride in the tour, boy, I'm mixing a lot of metaphors here. Using kickstart and stride in the same sentence. If I were your English teacher, man, you'd be rewriting this sentence. We have to get the basics right. The basics right would be good sentence construction. That starts with power that is dependable, clean, and affordable. It's got to be clean. Yeah.
Okay. I have an issue with that last statement there.
All right.
Because it's assuming something. Why isn't that naming what that power is?
Well, I suspect it's solar power.
It's debatable that it's clean.
Well, it depends on how far back you want to go to see what you mean by clean. But, there have been too many exposés out that in order just to build these photovoltaic cells, you need rare earth and an abundance of mining. And there's nothing clean about making voltaic cell that lasts about 20 years, and then what are you going to do? You got this hazardous waste laying around.
It's as clean as electric cars, which isn't clean either. And the reason I look at that last statement is because of the same thing what you did with the net powering. It has to be balanced. You can't have a majority of people on the net metering project, because then you wouldn't have customers, right?
That's right.
And the same thing with this electrical car business or even solar. You still need another source of power to augment that, because we're not even close to the technology there.
That's right. So with electric cars, if Marie Antoinette, the famous French queen, if she were reincarnated and were able to speak on the radio today, you know what she'd say? Let them drive a Tesla. Gas is expensive. Let them drive a Tesla.
Exactly.
Yeah. Are you listening, Crystal Paco? Yeah.
So I would submit that dependable, clean, and affordable right now are fossil fuels.
In a sense, they're certainly dependable, and it's a whole lot easier to clean up a centralized electrical generation plant than it is to clean up all these other things that we've been talking about. There's a really good movie documentary that I've mentioned on the air before. It's by Michael Moore, so it's not propaganda, right? It's called Planet of the People, and he really trashes this whole renewable energy thing. It's really an eye opener. All right. So going on with the editorial, while the rising cost of crude oil has led to frequent increases in the levelized cost of energy, as you were, I think I've already covered that part of it. Yeah, that's right. We wound up with clean and affordable. Okay, yeah. I got a little mixed up there. Got wrapped around my own axle.
Yeah, I intervened a little bit there. So
yeah, I was grateful for the help. So this is the classic example of intervention. What was the key word there? Remember I mentioned it to you, Jose. Oh, yeah. But exceptional events sometimes require extraordinary intervention. You got to get the governor involved here. Let the governor take some of that money and give it to the power authority so people's power won't go up that much, right? Yeah. Now, it's interesting that in the same issue of the Daily News, there's a really nice letter to the editor from a guy named Julian Jansen. And he really is on the same wavelength. And he's done us a tremendous favor because, we talk about conservatism, we talk about liberals, right-wing, lefties, etc. And this guy has done us a tremendous favor because he's come out and really showed us what leftism, what progressivism is all about.
Thank you for the warning.
Yeah. Okay, this is what he says. Progressives believe that 2022 holds great promise for Guam, provided our people and the trustees of our common resources. Already, he hasn't even finished the first sentence. Our common resources and products of our heritage make choices that serve our interests. Trustees of our common resources. Who do you suppose that is, Jose?
The government.
Of course. Building the kind of society that serves all of us involves the task of prioritizing what can and should be done on our behalf, not by us, but on our behalf. And who is in the best position to do this prioritizing? The people themselves? No, that can't be the right. Each individual? No.
Nope.
That's the government. Yeah. Progressives urge that public health continue to be strengthened, that workers be compensated fairly, that each working family has adequate protection of the quality of, protection of their quality of life. Now, who's going to do that protecting? Who are you going to call? Ghostbusters? And that all young adults can receive a tuition-free college education. Hey, that'd be great.
Wait, what?
Yeah. That would mean everybody could go to school and they wouldn't have to pay. Nobody'd have to pay for it.
Isn't how we got into this lack of vocations mess to begin with?
During the pandemic, the Leon Guerrero Tenorio administration has ensured that protecting the people of Guam has been the norm.
Wrong.
Protecting us from driving too fast on Marine Corps Drive by installing checkpoints every 100 yards. Particularly by vaccinating 93% of eligible adults. Now, I know that Lou made a big show out of sticking a needle in a couple of arms. But I think, other than that, I think it was other people than Lou and Josh that did the vaccinating. According to the most recent information I have seen from the CDC, those that are vaccinated and have received a booster for COVID face a 95% reduced mortality rate compared with unvaccinated individuals. That can't be right. That can't be right. If you're his age, some young kid about 30 years old, you fit into the 2% safety zone. I believe that vaccination now this is the true test of a progressive, starting out a sentence with these immortal words. I believe. When I was a kid, I believed in the tooth fairy. And I had really good proof of it, because every time I lost a tooth, I'd put it under my pillow at night, and in the morning I'd wake up and there'd be a quarter under my pillow.
Careful, you're sounding like a progressive.
Well, I believed in the tooth fairy, and I believed in Santa Claus, because, my mom and dad and I would talk, and sometimes when I got old enough to write, I'd write out a little list and send it to Santa Claus. And in the evening of the 24th of December, I'd go to bed, and I'd wake up in the morning, and you know what? Almost everything that I wrote about was under the tree. Of course, I was a poor speller, so some of the stuff didn't come out just right. So I believed in Santa Claus, right? The Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy. So here's Julian, as you were, not even Freudian.
Birds of a feather.
Yeah. I believe that vaccination against COVID-19 should be mandatory among adults.
Wait,
mandatory among adults who either employed or enrolled in school. Well, he is a progressive, right? He would provide exceptions for religious or medical reasons. Progressives like myself. How do you spell virtue signaling?
Starts with a J?
Yeah. It's double J, JJ. It's the abbreviation for virtue signaling. Progressives like myself strongly support the administration's plan to build a high-quality public hospital and their fiscal responsibility in setting aside federal funding to reduce its costs to working families. That's the definition of fiscal responsibility.
Good news, he's not a separatist.
Yeah. Maybe bad news. How many of those kinds of guys do we need on the island? Then he switches from I to the editorial we. Now, of course, I'm sounding like a sexist. He may be non-binary here, and he may very well be capable of carrying a child. So I don't know. Julian could be a female name. Well, boy, I'm just kidding. I better stop. I'm just digging the hole deeper and deeper, Jose. We strongly believe that workers should be better compensated for their contributions. So you don't pay a worker for the work that he does. You pay him for his contributions. I could work on a limerick. I got the beginning of it already formulated in my head. To each according to his needs, from each according to his ability. Doesn't that really hit the nail right on the head, Jose?
Yep.
And then he goes on to say, maybe he's talking about progressives. He is the face and voice of progressivism on the island. We support the pay raises that the current administration is providing to workers. You notice he's not using employees. He's using the right leftist word, workers. Here's another one that just kind of popped into my head, Jose. Workers of the world, unite. You have nothing to lose but your chain. Oh, wait a minute. Well, this guy's really made his marks on this editorial, hasn't he? We support the pay raises that current administration is providing to workers in the public health, public safety, and education. And we hope this will be followed by a comparable increase to all other public employees. Now, he used the wrong word there. He should have said public workers. Along with this, we urge the Guam legislature to raise the minimum wage to $12 in 2024 as a first step toward raising the minimum wage to $15 in 2027. Now, his reason for wanting that is really something. He says, if you do that, ensuring that a full-time worker on Guam can support a family with their wages.
Does it have to be that worker's family?
Well, I'm wondering this. Does any fool in the world think that you could support a family on the minimum wage?
The one that's attempting to.
Yeah. Does anybody think that that's the purpose of the minimum wage?
Apparently progressives.
Oh, progressives do, yeah. And of course, confession of a bias here, a minimum wage is foolishness. First principle, to the greatest extent possible, you don't want the government setting the price of anything. You damn sure don't want the government setting the price of labor.
Well, I'm surprised he didn't use the term living wage, that objective.
He doesn't have to. For him, he uses minimum wage. That's what he's saying, see? If he'd have said that, it'd be a little more credible. But he's thinking that by raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, he's ensuring that every full-time worker on Guam can support a family with their wages. So $15 an hour, the guy, the man married to a woman with a couple of kids, all he needs is $15 an hour. And he can support that family, according to Julian Jansen here. So, first of all, the minimum wage, you don't want the government setting the price of anything if you can avoid it. And second, if it really works, why are we horsing around with $15 an hour? Why don't we go up to $75 an hour, and then we could all be driving Lexuses?
I'm for that.
Yes, sir. All right, let's take a short break, and we'll come back to Julian Jansen's follies.
We're already Pika's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better.
Announcing the point on Alexa.
In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa
to stream The Point.
And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point.
$15 might not get you that far, but Chili's is bucking the trend with $15 meal deals. At Chili's, $15 gives you not one, not two, but 3-course meal deals complete with a drink, a starter, and an entree. Mix and match 3-course meals 15 ways to Sunday with soup, salad, or chips and salsa to start, and ranchero chicken tacos, honey chipotle crispers with rice, bacon ranch quesadillas, or personal fajitas for the main course. Build your own $15 meal deal at Chili's. More life, and great value happen here.
Attention tailgaters. It's time for you to get a new tail to gate on. It's a fact. They got a 2021 model clearance going on all kinds of your favorite Nissan models, the Rogue Sport, Kicks, Murano, Titan, and they've all got great FM radios so that you can pick up tall tales in the afternoon. 0% APR, or your first 3 payments are on Nissan. Zero down magic tailgaters. Learn more by visiting NissanGuam.com.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
Yeah, so if this minimum wage really works, and of course it doesn't, if you don't understand the concept of real wages, you'll never understand why it doesn't work. But it doesn't. If it did work, then we should make the minimum wage $75 an hour, and we'd all be driving around in Teslas, and we wouldn't have to worry about gasoline at all.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So he says he wants the minimum wage to go to $15 by 2027. That would be a wonderful thing, as the tourism industry is just trying to recover, right? So the good news would be the minimum wage is $15 an hour, and every one of the 8 people working in tourism is getting paid that much.
How many people?
Yeah. Well, maybe I'm exaggerating a little. I do that. It is the name of the show is Tall Tales, right? In addition, we believe that every worker should be guaranteed paid sick leave. Every worker. Would that include me? Every worker would be guaranteed paid sick leave.
We want to thank you for your contribution, Bob.
So they can be cared for by their family when they become ill. Wow. What a wonderful world this is going to be. Are you running for, are you going to pick up a packet, Julian? Boy, I hope so, man. This progressivism stuff sounds really, really good. We support efforts to ensure that working families have adequate resources, particularly in challenging times. The Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, established by the current administration in 2020, provided an important lifeline to families who lost income to the pandemic. Further efforts to help working families were provided. And who provided this stuff now, Jose?
It wasn't the current administration.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, I just asked Jeff Pleadwell out there at Pirates. Ask the pirate. We are strongly committed to building a permanent programs to support the quality of life of each working family. Permanent programs to support the quality of life of, what are we going to do? Maybe we could have home visits to make sure that people are doing the right thing in their houses, in their households. Permanent programs. The people of Guam need an unemployment insurance program to ensure families continue to receive income when a worker loses a job through no fault of their own. Now, you could rewrite that. You could write that sentence and not show how woke you are. You could have said, ensure families continue to receive income when workers lose their jobs. But it's so much better to use the singular worker so that you can show off by using their, right? In addition, we support having a permanent food commodity distribution program available to all families. Are you listening over there at Payless? A permanent food distribution program available to all families.
I thought we were supposed to be against Russia.
Yeah, so...
Socialism.
Yeah, so I wonder, I really like tacos and enchiladas and burritos and things.
It's not on the menu.
Not on the menu.
Not this week.
Oh, okay. Finally, yeah, I guess since this is Chamorro month, I should say Mastahuna Ina Chamorro. Finally, we believe that every young adult should be able to go to college free. Tuition free. Every young adult, even if the guy is dumber than a post, he should be able to go to college tuition free.
You'd be dumber than a post with a degree.
Exactly. Yeah, because once he's in there, it's not his fault that he's not getting good grades. Systemic something or other. Systemic conservative. Hey, why hasn't anybody come? You know, we're all victims of systemic conservatism. Tuition free. So that means that no one, you could go to UOG, you could go to GCC, you could go to the Pacific Islands Bible College out in Manila, right? It wouldn't cost you a cent. It would be free. No one would have to pay for it.
Now I know what he means by workers' contributions.
There you go. I'm sure the folks at GCC, Pacific Island Bible College, and the UOG would be really happy about, you know, chucking their salaries and everything, just showing up out of the goodness of their hearts. So kids could go to school tuition free. It's the progressive thing to do. And then he also goes on to say, President Biden should forgive all student loans. A couple problems with that. I think President Biden could say all student loans are forgiven. What effect would it have? I don't think it'd have any effect at all. President Biden might have the authority to say, don't enforce collection actions. It's kind of like President Obama didn't have the ability to say that undocumented immigrants, meaning illegal aliens who were brought to the country as small children, don't have to leave. The Dreamers program, he didn't have the authority to do that. He just said, we're not going to enforce the law. Now, when is it a good idea for people in power to not enforce the law? And that goes back to the Daily News editorial. Exceptional events sometimes require extraordinary intervention. That's I got to get that into, yeah. Because what it really does, it goes back to that old question, does emergency create power? And if so, can power create emergency?
Welcome to March 2022.
Tuition free. So all of these poor fish, these idiots like me that paid, well, I didn't pay for all of it. I got the GI Bill, I guess. But all these poor fools who paid to send their kids to college, or the kids that, even bigger fools who work their way through college, can stand there in awe and watch these others who borrowed money have their tuition free and have their student loans forgiven. What a wonderful group these progressives are, right? Progressives believe in a future that is better for all the people of Guam. Oh, yeah, and there's one thing. I'm going to see if I can get his address and write to him. There's one thing that I'd like to see him add. Every restaurant on Guam should be required to provide free lunches every day. Giving the lie to this old conservative saying, there's no such thing as a free lunch. My God, we're going to change that. All right, so that's the Daily News' editorial contribution today. You know, the Post not running editorials is looking better and better every day, isn't it? Let's see who I got here wanting to. Probably Julian Jansen on the line with some more rap about the progressives. Another Joe wants to talk about Jansen. Tell me what you know about Jansen, another Joe.
So if the cost of the price doesn't matter anymore, like the price of tuition and the price of anything, because everything should be free, then
hang on a sec, another Joe. Hang on a second. Using the word price may get us sent to Facebook jail. I don't think can you use that word on Facebook? Well, once Julian Jansen and his gang go ahead. I'm sorry for interrupting another joke.
So at some point, money is meaningless, right? It doesn't matter. So then the people who support this idea, they shouldn't mind if we go ahead and just take all of our budget and pay off whatever debt we can pay off with it, because money doesn't matter, the price of anything doesn't matter. So if enough of us, let's just spend all the budget. Oh wait, does the budget matter? Does the cost of anything matter? I mean, at some point you've got to acknowledge that things cost and have a price. I'm sorry, I said it again. Anyway, Bob, I'll just keep listening.
Something else here. Here's another idea that I might suggest to Julian. The workers should endorse their entire check over to the government and then let the government decide who should spend their money on what, right? Why delude people into thinking that they can make wise choices as to what they can do with their own money? That's just heresy. Good talking to you, another Joe. Okay. Once again, the Post is on strike. The editorial board at the Post is on strike, but Lee Weber filled in the gap here. We'll come back to Lee Weber right after this short break.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Okay, here we are. This is going to be tough. Lee Weber's column in the Daily News. I don't think Lee Weber's very woke. And I have serious doubts as to whether or not he's a progressive. And I hope he's listening today, because he really needed to hear what Julian Jansen said progressives are for. We should all consider it an educational process.
Tuition free.
Yeah. Now, I noticed, Jose, that you thought when you read the column that you had stumbled onto an article from Babylon Bee.
I was mistaken, but it was close.
Yeah, I mean, a logical mistake. All right, here's what Lee Weber says in the Post. Vote for proven public servants. As we continue to work our way into the current election season, let's take a look at some more questions. Let's look at things we should be asking ourselves as they relate to who to elect into public office. In this case, the legislature. As you know, we have a current set of legislators who will more than likely run for office again, given they do not try to run for governor or Congress or find something more financially fruitful to do. One of our problems here on Guam and in the mainland is that far too many politicians look at these positions as jobs rather than public service. And I've had people tell me that. When I talk about, a part-time legislature, that people who have jobs, businesses, whatever, could serve in a part-time legislature, pay them $50 a session. And the response I get was, why is anybody who's making more money than that want to take a job that only pays $50 a day? Because it ain't a job. It's not a job. Not even close to being a job. being working in the executive branch is a job because there are expectations, things you have to do. The same with the judiciary. If you're wearing one of those black robes, you got to climb up on that bench every day, and if you don't, you in a heap of trouble. If you're a senator, you could get sworn in, and you don't have to do a thing until the legislature adjourns sine die.
I'd submit 2020 to 2022.
Exactly. You could do it. You don't even need to come to work. There's no time clock. Nobody keeps track of your time. Nobody keeps track of your productivity. You don't have to do a thing. And I could probably cite some examples of that if you want to know what I'm talking about.
15.
Because it doesn't even have any of the trappings of a job. So to delude ourselves into thinking, well, we got to pay a senator enough to live on, is exactly why we're in the hole that we're in right now, and we'll never get out of it until we can straighten out our thinking on that. Going back to Lee's column here, rather than simply picking someone who needs a job as a friend or a member of your extended family. Now, I want to jump in here again, and that's this. We have a conflict of values here on the island. I'm going to really simplify this, oversimplify it for the sake of clarity. And that is that, that Guam is very familia-oriented. The family is extremely important here, more important than I think in most mainland communities. Where I grew up, I had a lot of cousins and aunts and uncles, and I knew each one of them, but I didn't know much about them. I didn't care that much about them. We'd get together Thanksgiving and Christmas, and that was about it. And if somebody died, we'd go to the funeral, but that was pretty much it. And I would say typical of folks living in the mainland. It's, certainly the white ones anyhow.
A lot of handshaking where here we kiss and hug.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so family just isn't that big a deal. In the mainland, we at least like to think that meritocracy is very important. Meritocracy means when we hire people to do jobs, to do work, we want to pick the best candidate. So we make these decisions based on merit. So if you're cussing and a total stranger apply for a government job and you're the guy that cuts the GG1, your cousin's out in the cold. Sorry about that. Now, and on Guam, if you did the same thing, pretty good chance that the next time you get together with your family, which probably would be sometime during the next month or two, maybe you wouldn't get exactly a Class A, what we used to call ass chewing, but you could bet the Atan Baba, the dreaded Atan Baba, would be around that fiesta table where they were serving, couldn't possibly be orange rice, red rice. Because, and if you had the chance to explain, well, I hired Joe Schmo because he was the best qualified for the job. Yeah, but Jose's your cousin. What about the family? So we have this conflict of values. Now, I'm not saying everybody does or every time or something like that, but it's something to keep in mind. So Lee Weber says, don't vote for somebody just because he's a member of your extended family. If you got out the 1972 playbook, the instruction there was to concentrate, figure out the families, the clans, and who is in control of that clan.
I was just going to say, I thought you were going to quote Underwood.
Yeah.
Wrong playbook.
Yeah, wrong playbook. The 1972 is a classic year. That's when he really got smart about politics, right? Yeah, so in the 1972 playbook, and then you try to make enough quid pro quo so that clan will support you when you run for office. And I've told the old story before about the candidate who's successful, and after the votes are counted and he's having his celebration party, one of his supporters comes up to him and says, "Hey, good, you won." He says, and then says to the senator-elect, when are you going to hire my son? So I don't know, what can your son do? Well, he can't do nothing. Why do you think I work so hard in your campaign? Yeah, so they will be your employees. Forget that. And Weber's saying you're the public's employees, not you're not theirs, right? They work for you. It's not the other way around. For those already in office, their voting and attendance files are also public documents and accessible via the internet. Use them to learn more about their candidates. And the expenditure reports are also down at the Election Commission. A couple of elections ago, when I had some time on my hands, I went down and looked through every winner's reports. Tina Rose Munia Barnes claimed a $750 campaign expense for new tires. Go figure. For those already in office, as you were, when I was president and publisher of newspapers, I had a sign on my newsroom wall, and it read, "If your mother tells you she loves you, check it out." A spirit that is no longer present in the journalistic folk on Island. Let's break for our big halftime show.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Kyiv apartment fire. I'm Laura Cantor, Fox News. State Emergency Service reporting that firefighters have attended to an apartment fire that was set off by Russian shelling in Kyiv, Ukraine. The Russian bombing of a maternity hospital in Ukraine, resulting in the death of a woman and her newborn. The Associated Press's images of the woman when she was pregnant had captured the world's attention. Ukrainian President Zelensky requesting a meeting with Russian President Putin. U.S. officials saying Russia asked China for military equipment for its invasion of Ukraine. Hundreds of people in Kherson, Ukraine, protesting the Russian invasion.
In Kherson, Russian soldiers fired into a crowd of protesters who are rallying against Russia, sending a strong and a deadly message. Those people were yelling at those Russian troops to go home, and hundreds of protesters flooding the streets there in Kherson. This was the largest protest since Russian troops occupied that city. It's actually really close to the border that separates Ukraine proper from the Russian annexed peninsula of Crimea. People were speaking out against plans to turn their southern city into a breakaway republic.
Fox's Alexis McAdams. Protests happening all over Russia. Rights group OVD reporting that close to 700 Russians were arrested in 36 cities for protesting the invasion. Minnesota Republican Congressman Tom Emmer on Fox Reports Sunday blaming the Biden administration's policies for the U.S.'s soaring gas prices.
Their answer is to try and blame anything. I mean, it was transitory for a while. Then it was the greedy corporations for a while. Then they even suggested it was good. It was a good thing. Now somehow it's Putin that's causing inflation.
And Tom Brady is returning to the gridiron. The seven-time Super Bowl champion announcing on Twitter Sunday that he will return as Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback, making it Brady's 23rd season in the NFL. Brady previously announcing his retirement almost 2 months ago. America is listening to Fox News.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
An easily overlooked part of covering our home is what's inside of it. Over time, we buy things we don't want to lose, but don't update our contents coverage. The smart thing to do is get the answers and level up our insurance to make sure we're totally protected.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Tori tempo gagi hami isla tanota.
China suffering its worst outbreak of COVID-19 cases in 2 years.
China reporting nearly 3,400 daily COVID-19 cases Sunday. That's double the previous day, forcing lockdowns in virus hotspots and school closings in Shanghai. Officials say 19 provinces are battling clusters of the Omicron and Delta variants. The city of Jilin has been partially locked down with hundreds of neighborhoods sealed up, while Yanji, an urban area of nearly 700,000 bordering North Korea, was fully closed off. Last week marked 2 years since the first lockdowns began here in the U.S. because of COVID-19. Ted Lindner, Fox News.
William Hurt, who won a Best Actor Oscar for Kiss of the Spider-Woman, has died at the age of 71.
Hurt's family announced that he died peacefully from natural causes a week before his 72nd birthday. He had been fighting terminal prostate cancer, which spread to his bones. William Hurt rose to stardom in the 80s with the films Body Heat, Broadcast News, and The Big Chill.
So what do you think? If you'd been in touch with him, you could have saved his life? You have that kind of effect on the people in your life? You keep them all jolly, do you?
And in 1986, Hurt accepted the Best Actor Oscar for Kiss of the Spider-Woman.
I am very proud to be an actor.
William Hurt is survived by 4 children. Roger Stern, Fox News.
Baseball is finally back after a nearly 100-day standstill.
The new deal incorporates 26 amendments to the contract and baseball rules, which includes raising the luxury tax to $230 million in 2022 and then to $244 million over the course of the 5-year agreement. The minimum player salary jumps to $700,000, and teams will now be placed in a lottery for the top 6 picks in the draft. Additionally, the MLB will see the playoffs expand from 10 teams to 12.
Fox's Charles Watson. Teams will now be allowed to display ads on team uniforms and helmets. I'm Laura Cantor, and this is Fox News.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Always here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years, we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Half a day. This is Jade Uggan from Security Title, and in celebration of Tomorrow Month, here is a tip on dealing with your land. You might be thinking of giving part of your property to your child or another family member. Once you have subdivided the property and recorded the map, you will also need to record the deed transferring the title. Just drawing the map is not enough to make sure they actually own the land. Protehi I Tanonmu. When it comes to your family land, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
So back to Lee Weber's column. He said that at one of the newspapers he ran, he had a sign on the wall that said this: "If your mother tells you she loves you, check it out." In other words, a good reporter is curious, and he does not take things at face value. He digs a little bit. Ordinarily, yeah, a mother would love a child, but not every single time. We read about some really bad things that happen between mothers and children. But unfortunately, I don't know of anybody other than Troy that has a newsman's curiosity nowadays. The PNC is very good at taking a press release and running it as though it were generated in their own newsroom. The Daily News will take a story at its very surface. The Post was doing quite well, but the Post has kind of regressed a little bit since they stopped writing editorials. I'll give you the example of the latest Michael San Nicolas corruption story. Both papers at the same time ran the same story about John Paul Manuel being called to Washington to testify before the House Ethics Committee. Both of them ran the same story, almost the identical stories at the same time. The Daily News, it was a top story, front page above the fold. Post, it was second page. And both said, well, we got this information because when Manuel applied for leave at the legislature, he attached a copy of the letter from the House Ethics Committee, marked confidential, do not disclose. He attached that to his leave chit. And that's how we found out. So, of course, both papers are over there at the legislature every day saying, can we go through all the leave chits you got? No. Somebody dumped it in their lap, and they ran with exactly what the letter said and didn't go a nickel's worth beyond that. They, to me, the real news there, because we've known about San Nicolas's ethical problem with Manuel for a long, long time. To me, the real news was who at the legislature has it in for Michael San Nicolas? Which Democrat over there is doing it? I mean, that's what I want to find out about. Were any of them curious about it? No, because it made the news that day and it disappeared since then.
The best was the Post going, and through a Freedom of Information Act that we thought up on our own.
Yeah, it was just spontaneous. We do this all the time. Yeah, so then Weber goes on to say there was another sign in the newsroom that says, thanks for what you did for me today. What will you do for me tomorrow? And this one, appreciate good work, but know it's expected each and every time. So if you got 2 years as a senator, you ought to be working hard up until the last day. Not say, well, I got a campaign now, so I'm not going to pay much attention to my job, quote unquote. Now, here's the part I really like. Look closely at voting records and how many times the person you plan to vote for, if an incumbent, passed on one or more in the process of voting. Yeah, and I have reversed myself on that, and I'll tell you why in just a second. Weber says if a senator has passed one or more times in the process of voting, that's usually an indicator they have either not read the legislation or are likely not working independently in the public's best interest. Well, I've even submitted proposed legislation to fix this. Instead of doing it the way we do now, we call the roll call on third reading in alphabetical order. So if your name is Juan Pat, you get to see how everybody else votes, right? So if you want to be a good devious politician and you want to vote right but still have the bill come out the way you want, what you do is you pass until you see whether or not there are 8 votes to pass the legislation. If there are not 8 votes to pass the legislation and your champion wants it to pass, then you vote yes. If you don't want it to pass, you vote no. In other words, it's kind of like counting cards in blackjack. You don't just take things as they come. And I've explained this at some length. I have drafted legislation that would fix it. First of all, the random calling of the roll, so nobody knows who's going to come next. And then second, a House rule that says you vote when your name is called or it's a no vote. We're not going to give you 3 times to make up your mind. We're not going to let you pass twice and then sit around for 2 minutes like a cigar store Indian So the recording secretary will count you as a no vote. All those theatrics would be gone. So I used to explain that at some length, and it's an important thing to know, but I've changed my approach now. I am going to I'm going to honor the credibility of every senator. I'm not going to attach any devious motives to their activity when they pass. I'm going to take them as they sit, that they're too stupid to make up their mind as to how they want to vote on a bill that's been laying before the legislature for months, that they're too stupid to figure it out until their name is called in the roll. No more of this fancy explanation. So if you want to join the Tall Tales Hall of Stupidity, the next time you're in a roll call vote, pass. And you can join Sabina Paris, who didn't know whether or not she wanted to override the veto on Bill 11 until she passed 3 times. Even though the people in front of her, there were only 8 votes in front of her to override. So she could have voted either way and it wouldn't have made any difference. But she passed 3 times. So, okay, Sabina, maybe we could have some remedial education for you, how to read a bill and decide on how to vote for it before your name is called. All right. In the event there are new candidates, what is their record of independent public service? In short, what is their history of working for the community as a whole and asking for nothing in return? And this gets to one of my pet peeves. The guy who spent the last 25 years working for the government of Guam and then says, when asked, why are you running for the office of senator? I've given 25 years of my life to public service. Oh, you didn't get paid for the 25 years? Oh, yeah, I got paid. Public service, That's not public service.
I was a worker who gave contributions.
Exactly. Yeah, if you're Julian Jansen. Yeah. Well, I go along with Weber here, and I would explain it this way. If you are not known until it's time to file your papers, save the money. Don't pay the $100 to file, because you don't have a chance. By that time, it's too late. You have to make yourself known before you become a candidate in order to have any kind of a chance at all. And preferably, you make yourself known in a good context, not because you got busted for a serious crime and the jury brought a non-guilty verdict in for you. Okay, but Weber makes a good point. People that have been active in civic life, religious life, etc., could be expected to bring something to the office that someone who is just a job hunter wouldn't. Weber says it's generally a great indicator of their willingness to do what is right in their mind, so it is a twofer. You can tell their real interest, and they didn't even ask to be paid for the work. Have they ever committed any grievous ethical violations, lied, intentionally misinformed, or misrepresented themselves to the public in their private life, or got caught at it? Once caught, how did they handle it? Now, I'm going to jump in here with the example that I've given you before, ethical violations. When the House rules of the legislature say that we don't pass any bill unless it's had a public hearing, with one safety valve, and that is if the speaker certifies that there's an emergency, and it's pretty well spelled out, then a bill can be passed without a public hearing. So when Ray Tenorio sent the Salary Smash and Grab Act over to the 32nd Guam legislature, no public hearing, a minimum amount of discussion, and let's see, I think 10 of the people on the floor voted yes. To me, that is a violation of ethics, because the bill raised their salaries from $55,000 to $85,000.
And it was done in an odd hour of the night, too, right?
It was in the daytime.
Oh, daytime.
Yeah, but it was a real shock because the acting governor, Ray Tenorio, sent the bill along with a call to special session. So you didn't have the 2 notices. called a special session, called to order, went through the Anafresi and the Star Spangled and the Finogi tomorrow, etc. Went straight to bills, first reading, second reading, third reading, boom, about an hour. So it, of course, passed without engrossment because there were no amendments. Enrolled, sent to the acting governor who signed it the same day. Now, this is all ethics. It didn't violate the law. You know, even if the lieutenant governor at the time had sought out a declaratory judgment, which is really the most severe sanction that's available to the attorney general, you'd have come up empty-handed because it wasn't illegal, but it was certainly unethical. So unethical that it cost 7 members of the Wampat 10 their jobs. The rascals were turned out. And I mentioned this before. One of the rascals was Tony Atta, part of the Wampat 10. In the next legislature, a group that I named the San Nicolas Posse. San Nicolas swore in a posse and went out and introduced legislation to roll that salary back. And it was fought tooth and nail. And you talk about passing and, strategic voting and the blackjack approach to voting. The votes were split up in such a manner that just about everybody had a chance to say, I voted in favor of reducing my own salary, but the bill didn't pass. Like one of the bills that I remember, poison pill. So you had to roll back the senator's salary from 85 to 55, roll back village mayor's salaries from 75 to 45. Nobody would vote to roll the mayor's salary back. I think Rory was one of them. Well, I voted to roll my salary back, but the votes just weren't there. So, I mean, this chicanery went on through the whole legislature until it finally passed. Atta was one of the ones that was turned out. He ran with Ray Tenorio, and he doubled down within the first week of the campaign by saying, senators really deserve that salary increase. So Weber says, have they committed any grievous ethical violations, intentionally misinformed or misrepresented themselves, etc.? Once caught, how did they handle it? How did they handle it? By running for lieutenant governor again. He wraps it up by saying, this will tell you a lot about the person in whom you intend to place your trust, respect, and all that public money. Good point. Good column, Lee Weber. It's a good thing that there are some people over there under the lash up of the Guam Daily Post that can write. Not only can, but will. They've got some good writers. They're just not doing it anymore. Okay, along Demi Cotney today, we finally get to the card. Let's see. We've already finished a big halftime show, haven't we? I guess the next thing is we got to go straight to the Hope Cristobal's screen test. I'm sorry I held it up so long. Let's go to Hollywood, Jose.
Colonizer! You're nothing but a white colonizer. That's who you are. Colonization. Same thing as slow murder. You're a murderer. That's who you are. Get off my island.
Sir, you need to go. You can't be policing people here and telling people how to protest or what to protest for. You need to go. You need to go. I'm against this. That's cool, but you cannot be policing people and telling them how to protest and what to advocate for. She has a right to yell.
I'm an indigenous tomorrow. I have more rights here than you are. You came here because of the structures of colonialism, asshole. Tayo mamalaw how sige juju ni tano. Di tau tanu how. Waho bini tau tanu. Waho bini magahoga. Waho son na dai juju bini. Hago
go.
Please.
You need to get out of here.
Please pause this.
Get out of here.
Please, this is not your place.
When I get a chance, go.
Please. Thank you. Thank you, pause this. Please leave.
No, you cannot.
What happened, ma'am?
Well, he confronted me.
What did he
He's
say?
telling me I shouldn't be here. I support Black Lives Matter. It's part of the colonialistic, systemic racism. And I came here to support these people. He's a white man that has come here. And he continues the legacy of colonialism. He continues to fight people, individuals, my goodness. I'm a former senator. I authored the Commission on Decolonization. Karohu. Ay, mamalo.
We are proud of you, Auntie.
Si Diyos mangasi.
He's like,
You lost our sound? Oh, okay. So, yeah, see, Eleknia si Hooper Scoble and Guahu Tautanu. So, Guahu nai. Guahu si Bob Klitzkie nai. Ti Tautanu zo. Tautau Lago zo. Lo Ti Lalalu zo. Yeah, and if you could translate anger into words, you just saw it. And if you're new to this screen test, you really need to understand that Hope Cristobal is the face and voice of the separatist movement here on the island. The folks that are saying Guam should shed its ties to the American political family and become an independent country because of systemic racism and all of the stuff that she was blathering about there in that video. And she is very proud of drafting the bill that became the Decolonization Commission. She calls it the Decolonization Commission, but here's the real name of the Decolonization Commission, the one that Melvin Wanpat runs. It's called the Commission on Decolonization for the Implementation and Exercise of Chamorro Self-Determination, Independence. And then she starts out at the beginning of that bill with a good-sized gaslighting, the obligatory legislative findings and intent. And the last sentence in the findings and intent says this: the United States, as the succeeding colonial power over the lands and the people of Guam, acceded to and recognized in the 1898 Treaty of Paris that the political rights of the native inhabitants of Guam shall be protected, and their collective right to political self-determination is inalienable. So when Hope did this back in the 23rd legislature, she must have thought that people were so dumb that they couldn't read, or they couldn't understand, or they were easily gaslighted. And I think probably, point 3, she's probably pretty close to right. So I cheated. I went to the Treaty of Paris, and I found Article 9 of the Treaty of Paris, and I'll read the last sentence of Article 9 of the Treaty of Paris. And this is what it says: the civil rights and political status of the native inhabitants of the territories hereby ceded to the United States shall be determined by the Congress. No! Now, you can make a lot of arguments that wasn't a good thing, that was a bad thing, we should have run the treaty. But the treaty says what it says. It doesn't say what you want it to say or what you hope it says. And when you have a public official that puts this in writing in a bill to create that commission, go back to what Lee Weber said. You know, how did Lee Weber wind up here? He says, have they committed any grievous ethical violations, lied, intentionally misinformed? Is that an intentional misinformation? Or just the kind of commitment to the ideology that we saw in the video, where what the facts actually are makes no difference. It's the narrative that counts. It's the reason that I wear my red shirt every Monday, because only a fool would come forward and say, Bob, your shirt is not red, It's the same color as the rice at the fiestas. It's orange. Oh, where's that guillotine sound, Jose? Yeah, that's what you're going to get if you buck that narrative. That's the way Hope is banking on, Well, it's tomorrow, so you better not say anything about it.
It's not even a misrepresentation or a misquote. It's a complete fabrication, which is just mind-boggling that it made it onto a document.
Exactly. And it tells you a lot about the folks that were in that legislature. Did they read it?
Nope.
Did they care?
Nope.
Did they want to be on the right side of the narrative?
And wasn't this fast-tracked towards the end of the session?
It passed. It was fast-tracked because it was a poorly drafted bill. It was not referenced to the Guam Code annotated. It wasn't an act to add a new add a new chapter 21 to Title I of the Government Code. It was Section 1, blah, 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 and so on down the line. It's because whoever drafted it didn't put in the code sections. Bills like that shouldn't come to the floor, but sometimes they do. So it was just a slack job, but of course it was the narrative. So when it passed, Governor Gutierrez vetoed it, sent it back, and if you read Governor Gutierrez's communications, he wonders if the veto was ever overridden because he didn't see the so-called overridden veto until like 3 weeks after the end of the session. So there's a lot of examination to be get into there. Maybe Michael Bavacqua, who holds himself out as a historian, could dig into that one for us. Okay, so here's the card for today. I've got Wokesters versus the United States of America. I've got Brian Terlahi versus the USA. I've got Berg versus Transparency. I've got Pete versus Mandagi Sia. I've got Pete versus Mandagi Sia.
Right. I was about to ask you.
Yeah. And we've already had Hope's screen test. I've got Yoon Sik Yul versus Ho S. Yoon. Mr. Ho owns the Post. I've got Kansas Teacher versus They. Now, ordinarily, it would be Kansas Teacher versus them. But when I get there, you'll understand why you've got to use the word they. Japan versus capitalism. This is a shocker. It's just a small story in one of the papers, as though it's inconsequential. But when the Prime Minister of Japan starts turning his back on capitalism, this is a bad, bad sign. But I'll get to that sooner or later. Waukesha versus Minneapolis. It's not the first time that Wisconsin showed the folks in Minneapolis how things are supposed to be done, And then the last item on the card, the first rule of the gag order. You know what the first rule of Lieven's gag order is?
We don't talk about the gag order.
We don't talk about the gag order. So it's the last item on the card, but come hell or high water, when we get to Churchill Downs, I will pick up that. We'll stop doing what we're doing. I wanted to wait till the end of the show so that anybody who's working at the Attorney General's office can listen to it in his car on his way home. Excuse me. They can listen to it in their cars on their way home. All right, let's head for the 7th inning stretch at Chicago in Wrigley Field.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point. Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Attention tailgaters. It's time for you to get a new tail to gate on. It's a fact. They got a 2021 model clearance going on all kinds of your favorite Nissan models, the Rogue Sport, Kicks, Murano, Titan, and they've all got great FM radios so that you can pick up tall tales in the afternoon. 0% APR, or your first 3 payments are on Nissan. Zero down magic tailgaters. Learn more by visiting NissanGuam.com.
Here we are, Wrigley Field in Chicago, the 7th inning stretch. That means we only got 2 more innings to go with Tall Tales today, Jose. But as usual, given my modest approach to the game, 2 innings, I could probably only hit 2 homers and a triple in 2 innings. Depends on the pitching, of course. Okay, first item on the card, Paul Zerzan and Red Rice versus the narrative, or versus the truth. And again, it is Red Shirt Monday, so I am wearing my red shirt that I wear every Monday. Jose, what would you say if I told you that I was wearing a orange shirt?
I would not believe you, because you never, ever would be caught wearing an orange shirt.
As credible as I am, you wouldn't believe me, huh?
Especially on Red Shirt Monday, especially today.
Yeah, well, all right. Okay, Wokesters versus the United States of America. This is from my friend Jonathan Turley, lawyer, columnist, a guy that I have actually had the opportunity to shake and howdy with. Came out here for our Bar Association meeting. Great speaker, great columnist, great lawyer, nationally famous. And this is what he said. Almost 40% of Americans say they would rather flee than defend the United States. In World War II, Winston Churchill famously declared that, quote, never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. Now, you non-World War II buffs wouldn't know that he was talking about the Battle of Britain, where an outnumbered, outgunned group of British flyers were able to neutralize the Luftwaffe, which was probably the best air force in the world at the time. Had they not been able to do so, had the Germans achieved air superiority over England, there probably wouldn't be in England today. So that's what Churchill said. It appears that there may be even fewer to count on if a recent poll out this weekend is accurate, even fewer who have done so much. The Quinnipiac University poll asked Americans, what would you do if you were in the same position as Ukrainians are now? Stay and fight or leave the country? Of course, you know, we've had a lot of real courageous people in the United States who said, if Trump's elected, I'm moving to Canada. These would be the really courageous ones. They couldn't even stand up to Donald Trump, much less the Russians. Only 55% said they would stay and fight for this country. That included only 40% of Democrats, and I think that number is wrong. I think it's an exaggeration. I don't think that many Democrats would stay and fight. Overall, 38% of Americans said they would flee. It appears this country is facing an existential crisis of faith. Now, why would that be? What group, what theory, what ideology would be afoot that would tend to cause an existential crisis of faith in the United States of America? Could that possibly be critical race theory? Yeah. Marxism in general? You know, there's an expert witness on this, Robert Underwood's probably going to call before I get through this article, so he could probably answer that question. It appears this country, as you were, is facing an existential crisis of faith, and we should have a frank discussion about why so comparably few Americans are now willing to pledge their lives in defense of this country. Quinnipiac has long been relied upon in polling in the United States as one of the most cited polling outfits for the media. It's important to note that while the results were shocking overall, many did say they would stand and defend the United States from any invader. When asked this question, 68% of Republicans and 57% of independents say they would fight. 68% of Republicans. Again, I don't agree with the number. I think it's understated. However, more than half the Democrats said they would flee before fighting for their country. Yeah.
Ouch.
8% did not have an answer. A shrug that is equally alarming. Stay and fight for the country or run away? Yeah, I don't know. As someone who came from a liberal Democrat family in Chicago, this is Turley, not me, I was shocked by the poll. My father and grandfather fought in world wars, and everyone I grew up with on the liberal north side of Chicago was intensely liberal and intensely patriotic.
They don't go together these days.
How far we've come. Indeed, I often heard my parents challenge Republican friends for suggesting that conservatives were more patriotic or more willing to sacrifice for their country. For my maternal Sicilian family, they felt a deep bond to the country that took them in and allowed them to live in freedom. Despite the prejudice that they encountered in difficult times, my Sicilian grandparents celebrated Independence Day like a religious holiday and often discussed their pride when they became American citizens. My grandfather was a union organizer and a coal miner who developed black lung in the mines of Ohio. He could not read or write, but he could probably recite parts of the Declaration of Independence and our national anthem. We should be alarmed by this poll because it shows a deep disconnection with this country and its protection. I got to stop here for a second and make the same point I made with some friends on Saturday down at Touray, of all places, that we now are defended by mercenaries. You know, when Nixon did away with selective service, the draft, in 1973, and we went to an all-volunteer army, I think we lost a lot in the process because nowadays only 2% of the people in the country have military service. Nobody else has any skin in the game. And before we got away with we did away with the draft, even those who weren't drafted knew that it was something that they at least had to think about. But, of course, it's gone. It'll probably never come back. Well, hard to say. Depends on what goes on in Ukraine, doesn't it? So I see that as part of the problem. If you're not willing to defend this country, citizenship becomes a status of convenience, an opportunistic association that can be shed as easily as it is acquired. It is a commitment that extends little beyond annual tax obligations. Notably, the poll did not pose a question over what might be viewed as an unjustified war in another land, like Vietnam. That wasn't what they polled about. This question asked about an invasion of our country. Indeed, despite the opposition to Vietnam, many Democrats and liberals still felt obligated to answer the call of service when drafted. My point. The poll shows a crisis of faith within the Democratic Party, but also the country at large. People have lost faith in our common article of faith and the Constitution. That did not occur overnight. There have been unrelenting attacks on our institutions and core values for years that ignore our countervailing successes. Well, systemic racism, here we go. We have gone through terrible periods and faced terrible institutions and practices from slavery to segregation. However, we face them as a people united in a common faith captured in the Declaration of Independence. We have not always lived up to those principles. Indeed, when those words were written, millions were left in slavery and millions were barred from voting, voting, property ownership, and other basic rights of citizenship. However, we became better than we were due to a faith in ourselves and our common constitutional bond. This is just one poll, and people can have different motivations in answering such questions. However, there was clearly desired by many to convey this disconnection with the country in their answers that suggest something more than just impish responses. There has been a growing agnosticism regarding this country as many challenge our foundational institutions and values. Absolutely. The whole CRT, the whole critical race gang, the whole Democrat socialist gang. Julian Jansen, are you out there? It is captured in the words of leaders like Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who questioned the very need for the Supreme Court when it was not ruling in line with her views. Quote, how much does the current structure benefit us? And I don't think it does. That is worthy debate to have, and our Constitution protects all sides in having it. Yet there is an underlying message that because of our institutions did not produce the results demanded by Ocasio-Cortez, we are told to scrap them. I'm going to come back to AOC tomorrow, but I did commit myself to going to the Attorney General's office right after the big halftime, as soon as we get to Churchill Downs. So let's go to Churchill Downs, Jose.
Hey, what did the grilled cheese sandwich say to their date?
What'd they say?
You make me melt.
Oh, so cheesy.
But not as cheesy as Subway's latest Eat Fresh Refresh menu innovation. The new Fresh Melts with 3 times the cheese. Fresh Melts are the cheese lover's holy grail. Fresh Melts combine freshly baked breads and your favorite meats topped with a triple load of cheese. All grilled to warm, toasty perfection. Try the ham and cheese melt, tuna melt, or steak and cheese melt to start. Best of all, you can make any footlong into a fresh melt. At Subway, eat fresh.
We're already Pika's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better.
Announcing the point on Alexa.
In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point.
Okay, so next up is the first rule of the gag order. And Jose informed you what the first rule of the gag order is just a little while ago. The first rule of Levin Camacho's gag order for Assistant Attorneys General is, first rule, nobody talks about the gag order. That's why it's called a gag order. So we've got a story once again from the working press here on the island, Candid News. Attorney General Levin Camacho gagged his prosecutors from working with senators to update Guam's laws. Given what I've read here before about, how he said in the elevator, call me sir, or call me general, right? I think he probably gagged the prosecutors before, where the word gag means. Yeah. So I understand that a lot of prosecutors now have a medicine kit that includes an antiemetic. Yeah. The gag order affected prosecutors' attempts with senators to strengthen sex crime laws. This information is according to a source from the Office of the Attorney General of Guam. Candid sent a Freedom of Information request to OAG spokesman Katlina Chatras for the gag order. Camacho sent the gag order via email to prosecutors, according to the source. Now, I've got my source, he's got his source. We've all got sources. They were very important bills on sex crime statutes improvement, the source told Candid, referring to potential legislation by senators during Camacho's tenure as AG. After he sent that email, there were even emails from senators asking for help that went unanswered. Several cases over the years involving allegations of sexual assault of children and women resulted in either no prosecution or plea bargains favorable to rapists because of the antiquated sex crimes laws. The statutes were basically outdated, Senator Frank Blas Jr. said. Based on the new rules of evidence, they needed to be updated. I suspect new rules of evidence dealing with confrontation, Sixth Amendment stuff. The prosecutors came to me and said, we're losing cases the way the laws are written. And with the new rules of evidence in place, we're looking at statutes written in the 50s and 70s. The prosecution of Abner Pasatiempo may be an example of this and surely has raised red flags in the prosecution division. I wonder what color they are. Yeah, I have a feeling that they're probably orange flags, caution. But in the gag order, there's a separate paragraph that says you will understand that the flags you see here are red. They're not orange.
How dare you?
At least 7 women who were under his medical care accused Pasatiempo of sexual misconduct, ranging from sexual harassment to sexual assault. Yet the Attorney General only charged Pasatiempo with double parking, a misdemeanor.
Wow!
Well, wait, let me read that again. Only charged Pasatiempo with official misconduct, a misdemeanor. Not much difference, right? Yeah, so, we know that we know exactly what happened, and the prosecutor handling the case wants to charge it out as rape. But we are tempted to charge it out as bad manners. And it wasn't the sex crimes prosecutor at the time, Christine Tenorio, who made that decision. So the sex crime prosecutor didn't get to make the decision to charge it as a misdemeanor. They, as you were, the Attorney General made that decision. And we made this comparison before to Chesa Boudin, and I can't remember the guy. Is it Garcetti in L.A.?
I can't recall.
Yeah, he was a DA in San Francisco, and then he moved to L.A. And both these guys, just hate to charge anybody with crimes. Other sex crimes where no prosecution has been initiated include complaints made against a former police officer and a law enforcement chief at the airport authority. A law enforcement chief.
We all know that story.
At the airport authority. Whether the reason for the lack of prosecution in these cases and others is related to antiquated laws and the new rules of evidence adopted by the Guam courts is known only within the confines of the OAG. But its prosecutors, who understand the legal impediments to criminal justice for sex crimes victims, know what needs to change and have been eager to work with senators on the updated laws. Prosecutors and victims advocates initiated the recently enacted Sexual Assault Victims Privacy Act, championed by Senator Blas. No one went to the public hearing because of the gag order. You know, you guys over there that are a little bit daring, next time this comes up, get yourself a gag and show up at the hearing, right? And when a senator asks you a question, learn how to say a few things in sign. I can't talk because I've got a gag in my mouth. No one went to the public hearing because of the gag order, a source said. The administration of the Attorney General's office just don't care. Blas confirmed what the source said. When we went to see if anyone would testify, the answer was no. There should be a legislative inquiry into what's going on there at the AG's office. Blas, who is part of the Republican minority of the legislature, said, the governor herself also needs to ask, what's going on? Are the prosecutors getting support? Because even though the AG is elected, she, meaning the governor, is still in charge of the executive branch. Candid reached out to Speaker Terlahi, whose telephone apparently was broken. Yeah. Couldn't just call her on the phone. They had to reach out to her, who has legislative oversight of the OAG, asking if she's considering a legislative inquiry on the situation within the OAG. She has not responded as the publication of this story. Well, maybe there's a gag order on her. Okay, so this is, I think, the third story I've done on this. I have a copy of Troy's Sunshine Law request, and this is what he asked for. Pursuant to the Freedom of Information Act, I request any email, memorandum, letter, or any such correspondence from Attorney General Leland Camacho or any of his secretaries, assistants, deputies, etc., to others within the Office of the Attorney General, the contents of which request or direct the recipients of such correspondence to not speak with any senator unless approved prior by the Attorney General. To be specific, this would be during the term of Attorney General Camacho. Thank you. And there was a confirmation of receipt, and then...
Oh, good. He had the right address.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, at least they said he had the right address.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because if it's not the wrong address, you can never send a Sunshine Law request again. So he gets a response from Gabriella Ripple. Yeah. Comes from a family of vintners, no doubt.
She's making waves.
I was thinking of the wine, but you're right.
That too.
Yeah. Vintner, people who work with vines, yeah. And this is what Ms. Ripple says. She says, we are confirming receipt of your FOIA request. This request will be referenced as FOIA 2020-07. Please direct all communications regarding this request and any further future requests to FOIA requests at oagguam.org. We are reviewing processing your request and expect to provide you a response by March 18, 2022. Please confirm receipt with a reply message. Sijuos Maase. Have a great, blessed, and safe day. Sinceramente, Gabriela P. Rojas Ripple, paralegal.
Good.
Straight to the top. It all sounds pretty good, except for one word. They're going to process his request. I think really what they need to do is answer it and give them the
honor.
But to process the request, to me, this conjures up the mental image of 2 or 3 of the brain trusts sitting around there saying, we can't show them those emails. How do we get around this? What's the process we should employ? Send it back and say you sent it the wrong email address.
Create another email.
The last time. Yeah, so, and then I had a letter, not a letter, but from an anonymous source here who wound up by saying, he told me a lot of stuff about the Attorney General's office and wound up by saying that that person said that there was a bad feeling for the island, that that person felt unsafe and helpless, even though that person's job is to fight crime. We can only do so much with so very little. All the prosecutors are suffering and everyone is trying to leave. It's going to get ugly soon if something doesn't happen. The next day, Troy broke his story. Yeah, so it is getting ugly. Now it's just about time for me to reach for my sign here. It's about time for me to utter those immortal words, but I want to make an offer to anybody in the Attorney General's office. You know, we're all lawyers, and you know where you can go to the Bar Association website and you get my contact information. It's not confidential. It's not secret. There's no gag order. And you can send me whatever you want. You can call me whatever you want. And if you give me something that's useful, that meets the high literary journalistic standards of Tall Tales, you'll probably hear it right here on Tall Tales, because I'm extremely concerned. I'm not only concerned as your favorite talk show host, but I live here. And I don't want to live in a crime-infested community because we're trying to beat L.A. and San Francisco to the punch on not prosecuting crimes. So we've come to the end of another perfect day here on Tall Tales, right, Jose?
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to wrap it up with my visual here. Let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Ukrainian Forces Facebook post. I'm Laura Cantor, Fox News. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine posting on Facebook that Ukrainian forces have dealt devastating blows on Russian forces. Russian shelling causing an apartment fire in Kyiv, Ukraine. Firefighters responding to the blaze. Ukrainian President Zelensky saying Sunday evening he wants to meet with Russian President Putin. An influx of refugees from Ukraine seeking safety in Poland.
We're seeing more and more families gathering at train stations across the country, and 1.6 million Ukrainians have now entered Poland alone. But the mayors of some of Poland's largest cities say that this simply is not sustainable. The old train station in Krakow is now a converted refugee center. There are cots and air mattresses and sleeping bags on the ground. Still, it's impossible to keep somewhere like this clean with so many people and so many pets.
Fox's Alex Hogan in the southern part of Poland. Refugees also heading to other countries, including Romania and Hungary. Iran responsible for the launch of 12 ballistic missiles near a U.S. consulate in northern Iraq early Sunday.
U.S. officials do confirm that the ballistic missiles that were fired at Erbil in the Kurdish section of Iraq came from inside Iran. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps said they fired up to 12 ballistic missiles. U.S. State Department officials, however, say the missiles were not targeting the U.S. consulate there. But the Iranian ballistic missiles did land right next to the U.S. consulate in Erbil.
Fox's Jennifer Griffin at the Pentagon. No U.S. casualties or injuries. Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla telling CBS's Face the Nation Sunday that another COVID booster shot is in the works.
The protection that you're getting from the third, it is good enough, actually quite good for hospitalizations and deaths. It's not that good against infections, but doesn't last very long.
America is listening to Fox News.
Jason in the House, the Jason Chaffetz podcast. There is always someone doing something stupid somewhere. Dive deeper than the headlines and the party lines as I take on American life, politics, and entertainment. Join me, Jason Chaffetz, every Wednesday as I shed light on the news and make some predictions along the way. You never know who will drop in. Subscribe now on FoxNewsPodcast.com or wherever you download podcasts.